Good afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Filing for Learning podcast. Today, we're going to talk about reading issues. Like, how do we solve these reading issues that our students have? And today, we're going to really dig into structured literacy, which aligns with the science of reading. So, we're going to demonstrate four stages of the structured literacy lesson. And this approach is going to help your child, 95% of the kids, be able to read well and write well if it's done systematically and it's done in, regularly 5 days a week. And so let's get into it.
Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success.
Adjustments need to be made. Okay. So here we are. I have my handy dandy, you know, um, what do you call this? Post-it poster size, right? So we're going to get into the science of reading, um, specifically the structured literacy approach. Now, if you missed my last video that really focuses in on letter sound blending, then it's going to be linked in the show notes. So make sure that you follow that up. But this is going to start with something called phonological awareness. Now, phonological awareness strictly focuses on listening to the sounds in words. So, phonological awareness, we're a little wonky here. Let me sit down for this one, actually. Okay. So just to let you know, phonological awareness has to do with being able to hear and move around or manipulate the sounds in words. Phonological awareness is this huge type of umbrella that covers word level, um, phonological awareness to be able to hear the sound in words. It also follows the ability to break apart word parts. So if we're, and it also has to do with syllables, and then it has to do with onset and rhyme. So that's the beginning sound in a word, and then the rest of it, being able to split that up and hear the different parts. And also, the very top of that is phonemic awareness, which has to do with being able to hear the individual sounds. Phoneme is the smallest amount of sound in a word. So I'm going to start with phonemic awareness, giving you the examples. So I just listed it. Now I'm going to give you the examples. So if I ask you to break apart the word cat into its individual sounds or phonemes, the smallest sound, it would be k, a, t, cat. So those are all the individual sounds in cat, the smallest amount of sounds. K, a, t, cat. Okay? So that is the highest level. And that ability to hear and move around sounds and words is a very strong predictor about whether or not your child can read. Do the letter sound blending, right? Notice I'm not using any letters because this is the precursor for that. Very clearly, I want you to know that you're not going to use this in isolation. If you have the kids blend sounds, without letters and just say dot, d, ah, t, dot, and then you're like, okay, I taught reading. Nope, you gotta do the rest of it. So, structured literacy begins with phonemic awareness. But again, if your child is not ready for phonemic awareness, they're not able to break apart the sounds in the word cat, k, at, they're not able to do that. You may take a step backward and then have them just give you the first sound and then the rest of the word. So that's the onset and rhyme. And rhyme in this case does not mean like rhyming words. That's another level. So rhyme is just Rime, the rest of the sounds. So these, again, these vocabulary words are in the show notes just so that you would understand what I'm saying and it's not too like above your head or, I have extensive training in it, and that's fine. And of course, there's an opportunity for you to work with me if you need more support with this with your kids or your students. I'll be glad to help you. But these is, just an introduction to get you to know. So onset and rhyme would be k, at. So the first sound is k in cat, and the rest of it is at, right? So that's the rhyme. The rest of it, the rest of the sounds. Okay. And if they're not able to do that, you may need to break it down into the word parts, or syllables, right? So I just made a distinction between word parts and syllables because word parts, if you have, for example, a compound word, two words put together, such as catnip, there's cat and there's nip. Catnip, you put it together. So that first, so a level down, right, from onset and rhyme, right? If you can't do all the sounds together, would be then you would move down to onset and rhyme. And if you aren't able to do that, then you could move down to, if your child's not able to do that, move down to word parts. So if I have the word catnip, and I'll say the word catnip real quick, and then they could break it down into the different parts. Cat and nip, right? Two parts. And that is a way to help them, got to help move them up to where they're able to hear the very smallest sounds, the phonemes in words. So there is more to this. And again, I will do more videos and even link some articles so that you could know more about that. But that is one way to make sure that your child understands, they're able to fill in those missing gaps that are not able, allowing them to be able to sound out words. Sometimes kids can't sound out words, and it's because they can't even hear the sounds in words. And that is where we do wordplay and different activities like that to help solve that problem. And again, it's not taught in isolation. You do these activities. So I will give you three words so you can see what it looks like. For students, I would give them a model. Okay, I want you to break down the sounds and words. And the reason why we do this, and I explain to my students why, is because it helps us to hear the individual sounds and words. And later on, when we're connecting it with letters, it's going to help us with our spelling, it's going to help us with our reading. Okay, so the first word is cat, and you're going to watch me. All the sounds in the word cat, and I do a finger stretch. K, a, cat. Now, when I do it for my students, I do it backwards. I'm looking at my fingers this way. They're going from right to left, but when they're looking at me and facing me, they go left to right. So that's why I do it like backwards. So that the way they see it is from right to left, like the way we write, okay? I'm saying right to left, left to right. You know what I mean? The way that we write. So the next thing that you're going to do, now that I've done it with them, or shown them what to do, they did all the sounds. Now I give them words and they're going to do it. And again, when we're talking to kids, you want to stay in when early readers, you want to stay in the same type of sound and words. So today, if I'm going to focus in on ah, words with the sound ah, so my first word is tot. The little tot ran around the playground. So like short for for a toddler. So anyway, there's also tater tots, but anyway. So tot, and they give me the sounds and we do it together. My voice is in it. Ah, t, tot, right? And so then eventually we want them doing it on their own. So you give them the word dot and then they could say the ah, t, dot. And again, we're not using letter sounds. We're not using letter sounds yet, no letters. That's the next step. So another way to do this, so this is where I gave them the word and then they broke down the word, and that segmentation, again, phoneme segmentation or breaking it down. The other way that you could do it is you give them all the sounds spread apart and they say it fast into one word. So if I tell them the word, so give me the word r, ah, t, and they're able to say rot, right? Or I'm going to give you the sounds l, ah, t, and they could say lot. So those are two sides of phonemic awareness where I give them the word, they break down the word or segment it. I give them the individual sounds in one word and they blend those sounds together. So you will hear me saying blend a lot. There is phonemic awareness blending, right? So I'm not using any letters. I'm just using the sounds. It's just my voice. Okay, so let's get into the second part of this is where we actually are using cards. So we're using cards to reinforce the letter sounds. So you say O spells ah. F spells. There's the rest of my letters. Here they are. A spells ah. Okay, so again, with early readers, you might only be reviewing some of the words. Of course, your child might be older or something, so you may want to, and I said words earlier, but you may want to review all of the sounds, right? So C says k. I'm gonna make sure it's like going backwards. C says, and I like to say spells because again, we're connecting that later on they're going to be using these skills, these moving around and listening to the sounds and words. We're going to be moving this to letters, and we are moving it to letters. So I want to say spells, right? C spells. K. All right. So later on, the other part to do with this students, another side of this is where you give them the sound and they tell you the letter. Which letter which letter spells k, and then they'll say C, right? Like very good, C. What letter spells ah, and they'll say O, right? And again, if they don't know it, you help correct them. Again, always be patient. They're going to be making mistakes. Part of the learning process is making mistakes. Remind them of this. Keep it light, keep it fun, all right? But keep it focused. Okay. All right, so the third part of this, right? So we did our letter sound blending. We did our a sound blending, right? With no letters. We're going to get into the letter sound blending now. And so again, you want to keep everything connected. Notice words earlier that I did the oral blending, like just with the words, the sounds, using my mouth articulate those sounds. Now we're going to actually use those same words or words like it to actually do the letter sound blending. So I'm going to move out the way. Uh-oh. I'm a little all over the place today, but let me tell you, I'm going to take a quick break and then I'm going to come back and do the letter sound blending. Gotcha. Okay. The United States, 75% of children don't know how to write well. Add that to the fact that so many people out there are trying to silence the voices of those who have been oppressed and trying to prevent them from telling their story. Who's going to tell your story? If your child doesn't know how to write well, I have two books to address this issue: The Rewrite Method and The Rewrite Method Workbook, written to make sure that parents know what to do, that educators know what to do to get their children to write better, and just not write better, but love to write. Make sure that your next generation could tell their story and they won't be silenced. Go to fallingforlearning.com today to purchase your set. Okay, here we go. So hopefully it's a little bit more clear, a little better today. Okay, so than it was at the beginning. So we have the phonological awareness was the first step. Review letter sounds. So we did that. Our next part that we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the letter sound blending. So I have a video that we did in depth about this one already on our podcast episode 70. 5, I believe it was, but it will be in the show notes. So you don't even have to guess, it'll be there for you. All right, so the next thing for our letter sound blending, we want to make sure we're using those same sounds. So we were doing ah sound earlier. So now we're going to be doing ah sound with words. So the first word, for example, is dot. So I'm going to not just announce the word dot, we're going to write the word, and the kids are going to give me the sounds and blend it for me. So, d, ah, t. So I write down each letter and I point to the sound. D, ah, t, right? And again, you always want to do the first one where you demonstrate what to do, and then you want them to do it themselves, right? But d, ah, t, dot. So we're going to blend it together. Again, very similar to the phonological awareness, the phonemic awareness, where we just gave them the sounds and then they put it together. But now we're doing the letter sound. So again, you don't do phonological awareness in isolation, and you don't do letter sound blending in isolation either. They come together. Okay. All right. So now the next word, ooh, ah, lot, lot, right? Again, the goal is more and more, right? To do it with them. So we do it, we demonstrate, show them, model it for them. We do it with them, right? This is the guided. And then eventually you want them to get to the point that they are doing it by themselves. So once you put it down, so you would maybe have your voice quiet and they would be saying, R, ah, rot, right? And there's different levels to the letter sound blending. And again, there's more videos that will come up. And you, of course, you could review the past episodes to see like the different levels of letter sound blending. So now we have the letter sound blending. We have blended these words. Then again, you want to make sure that you are reading all the words again. So we may need to blend it again, but maybe they remember dot, lot, rot. Don't be surprised if you have to blend it again. Dot. And again, one of the clues that I was saying earlier is that you may need to stretch that vowel. D, dot, and hold on to it. If you hold on to that vowel sound, it'll help them to hear it and be able to blend it. So that is a challenge for some of the kids. They're not able to hold on to that blend, and or they don't know to hold on to that sound and then add the sound at the end, and so they're like they still don't know the word, right? So d, ah, dot, dot, and they'll be able to hear it. So that is a really good strategy for being able to hear the words. So now that we have it, remember our next thing that we want to think about is being able to read like a sentence with the word. And again, one of the things that you would learn is there are some high frequency words or sight words. For example, the word the. It is not really easily to sound out, especially if they're reading words like this. That's the level they're on, but they need to memorize it. Uh, the, dot. So they may know that from here. And then is. And is very tricky because it makes the z sound. Is, you don't say is, you say is. So, and then red, red. So again, this is a consonant vowel consonant word. These are sets of consonant vowel consonants. So with it is this, the rule is short vowels, and they should be able to d, ah, t, r, d. And if they're not ready, again, blending through the vowel, d, ah, t, dot, r, red. Okay? All right. So these are the parts that we need to remember about our structured literacy. The last part of the structured literacy approach is so I usually do this part on a whiteboard. I erase the whiteboard, or do totally different words, right? And then we actually have the kids writing down the words. So I will come and sit down again for this. You go back to having kids with the letters, with paper or whiteboards in front of them. And then you say to them, okay, you're now going to write down the word dot. And of course, you're not holding the word up here for them, right? Like it's up there for you, but you're going to erase it or cover it up or whatever. And then you help them, just like you did with phonemic awareness. You have them look at your mouth as you're articulating the sounds, and you're like, dot. What's the first sound in dot? D. Next sound in dot. And what letter spells d? D, right? And then ah is the next sound. And what letter spells that? And it's ah, ah is the next sound. What letter? O. And then t. And so they were doing. And so again, like this, you're going to go ahead and see how you're going to write it. So they would say, and again, you could show them the first time. D, D, what next sound do you hear in the word dot? Let me move this out the way. And they say, and you're like, okay, what letter is that? What letter spells I? And it's like, O. And then d, t, t, dot. What letter is that? And they're like, T. All right. So again, all of these skills we used up here, listening for the sounds and words, reviewing our letter sounds, doing our letter sound blending, and then, reading also these words, right? And then also actually doing what we call encoding. So let me go ahead and do two more, and then we're going to go back and label these different parts. Okay. So the next word is, and again, I like putting in nonsense words because they don't know all of the words and they have a limited vocabulary when they're young readers. And so I might say something like, the next word is mott. Now, mott doesn't have a meaning, but we could still know the rules for sounding it out. What is the first sound you hear? Mm. What letter spells M? The next sound is ah. What letters, spells ah? Oh. The next word in sound in mott. What letter spells it? T, right? So again, you go through this with them. And the next word is tot. The little tot ran around on the playground. First sound is T. What letter? T. What letter? O. And then tot. We say the word, and you're hearing the kids say the word. Make sure they say it, and then they can hear the sounds, right? And so we have dot, mot, tot. And then you go and check their work. Now, this is what I want to say about this. Do not, do not edit their work while they're doing it. Like, don't stop them if they're doing a total wrong thing. Don't stop them. Say, okay, let's go. And then after they're done, so for example, if they wrote like not, right? Even though you said mot, you can go back and say, let's go check our work. And you write the word. Okay, we should have dot, we should have mot, and we should have tot. So if they know that they made a mistake, they can use a different color or write it next to it or erase, depending on what you want to do. And they're going to make the correction. Okay, I need to do mot instead. Ot. And then I always go to the articulation because a lot of the problems with the words and the spelling has to do with articulation. They might have said not. They may have thought you said not. So you're always pointing at your mouth. If you're saying in, or if you're saying right? You're saying Which letter is that? You're, curving in your mouth, your lips. So they know the difference, and that helps you to understand what they don't hear well. That will help you. So again, do not say, you got that wrong. Let them write it and say, okay, you got this one right. You got the O and the T right, but we're missing that first one. So let's go ahead and fix it. And remind them that mistakes are part of the learning process. I'm going to say it all the time. I'm going to remind them. You don't want them feeling bad. This is why kids don't like to read or write. When they're making a bunch of mistakes, and we are making them feel bad about their mistakes, or we're nitpicking. Again, you're going to make a conscious effort to say the positives that they're doing. You did a real good job with this one. You made, oh, you got the O and the T right. So I'm pointing out what they got right. You got tot right. Okay, this one, let's go back to that sound. So I said mot, but you had ot. What letter does N make it? What sound does N spell again? So you remind them. But again, focus in first on what they did well, and then go back and see about what they did that they need to correct. Because if they feel like it's only all bad, then why do I want to do this? I keep making mistakes. I am not good at this. I'm not going to get good at this, right? And some of our kids are struggling readers and they're older. And maybe they should be done with these baby words, as some people may say, but they're not. So wherever they are, you want to meet them there and you want to help build them up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and review what we were talking about because these are very important things you need to know. So this is part of structured literacy, and I'm going to write it here. And it's just 4 steps. There's like 8 different steps in structured literacy. So you should know that. About 8 different steps, and we will do videos. And I even have a course, and I could give you a consultation as well to help you recognize an area of your child's reading that can be improved and all of that, because reading is so fundamental, right? Our kids need to know how to do it. And if they're not naturally picking up reading, then it's very hard. Reading can be like rocket science, right? There's a lot of research on the science of reading about how difficult it can be. And it takes a lot of training to kind of diagnose those issues and to remedy those issues. So we have the phonological awareness. This is just sounds, manipulating the sounds and words. Then we have reviewing the letter sound. So we're literally holding up the cards and asking you what letter spells this, writing down a letter that makes a sound like fish, right? Things like that. Reviewing the letter sounds, right? Number 3, we're doing our letter sound blending. Letter sound blending. So an example would be dot, lot, rot. And again, how to make this structured is making sure that we're not just doing any letters and sounds, but I focused in on the short O sound, right? When you have a struggling reader or a new reader, it is important that you stay focused on a particular sound. Now you can spend a week on a week on um, it, right? And then eventually you could do any short sound. But again, you're still working on the CVC words. These are consonant, vowel, consonants, and they all have the same sound. Remember, during the phonological awareness, I stuck with the ah sound as I was doing it. And that's throughout. They're going to get it because you are connecting the sounds to the letters and then actually doing the letter sound blending, is also known as decoding. And then when we did the number 4, this is called encoding, and it's also called dictation. So people use new terms for the same thing. So just be aware. Some people will call it encoding, some people call it dictation, and I think some people even have another terminology for it. But these are 4 really important parts. Of course, decoding or letter sound blending is interchangeable. So, very important. Hopefully, you have found your value. If so, please like, subscribe, do all of those things, and message me if you want, some more in-depth information, or there's particular types of videos that you want me to share. I'm here for it, and we know we can work together to get children's reading on track. Okay. Now, thank you again for joining me. Make sure today that you do something that your future adult children will thank you for. Thanks again.
Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. New episodes go live every Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch us on youtube.com at Falling for Learning, or listen on all major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, and much more. For more resources, visit fallinginlovewithlearning.com. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week.